Let's get into all of the books that I have been reading for the past couple months. The first book is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. Follows these two characters who are friends when they're really young, and then they go ahead and make a video game together when they're older. So you're getting a lot of history and you're getting a lot of present, and then you kind of follow them as they grow up from college on out until I don't even know what age they actually end the book at. You follow them around as they become like the most famous video game makers ever. They make a really popular game that just goes crazy, and you just like follow their lives. They're very trivial people though, and they have a lot of like internal issues, and so you get to unravel that with them and see how they cope with that. The characters' intricate detailing is one of note. The way they are elaborately designed and crafted is beautifully portrayed. I wish I loved this, but I found myself getting lost. I somehow slipped into the blank spaces in between the words and couldn't find an escape out of it. I lost the premise of the book halfway in, and then I just didn't care. So it was a really good book. I think the writing was beautiful. It's just not a book I thoroughly enjoyed. And that's okay. That is why books are made and why we love them. Right after that, I read Us Against You. It's the second book in the Beartown series by Frederick Bachman. I cannot rave about this series enough. I tell everyone I know that they have to read the series. It follows basically the aftermath of a tragic event that happens in the first book, and you get everyone's perspectives and kind of how everyone's dealing with things. And I think what was really cool about this one is that when you don't get series, you don't get to know what happens after something bad happens. And so it's really cool kind of seeing how everyone's coping with it, how people are moving on, how they're not moving on. This man somehow took something so dramatic and traumatic and crazy and made it so lyrically beautiful, made it a level to understand and grasp, but also feel the grief of it. As if the first one didn't crush my soul already, this book takes you through the aftermath of a bad event in a small town in the most perfect way possible. I felt everyone's emotions so deeply as if I were them. It's crazy to give a second book another 5 stars, but here I am. So good. I jumped into The Housemaid Secret. This is the second book of the Housemaid series, and I actually read this on a cruise. This one I read so fast. I read it in the same day. I read it in one day. This book just kind of follows the aftermath of how Housemaid ends, the very first one. I don't want to say too much because I feel like it's just going to spoil it. Something about Frida McFadden will always have you reading it so fast because the way she writes is always a cliffhanger and you want to keep turning the page to find out. And I was on a cruise, so there were really no distractions but to be able to read it, which also explains why I read it in one day. If you don't finish her books in a day, who are you? She finds a way to throw you into a story and keep diving for more. I love that it was years after the first one. I think that created more depth into who these characters are as people. My only complaint is that there wasn't a lot of scenery storytelling. I couldn't visualize where we were, like ever. But of course, I read it so fast, so who cares? I will never not read a Frida McFadden, especially like when you need a quick read. I always pick her up. She's a go-to. During that cruise, I read another book. I read Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. So my sister actually had this book and we were like trading off books the whole cruise. It was a week-long cruise, so we were trading off books the whole cruise and kind of like reading each other's, and this is the book that she ended up getting for book of the month. And so I was like, yeah, for sure, let me read this. Basically about this husband and wife, and the wife goes missing and the husband kind of goes a little bit crazy. He just doesn't really know what happened to her. It's kind of like a cold case. No one really knows if she's alive or dead. And he is an author and he ends up going to this island to try to focus on his writing. So he finds some escape on this island, and this island gets creepier and creepier by the second. I thought that the setting was super cool, and maybe that's why for Housemaid Secret I kind of felt like the setting was dull and it lacked a lot, because the opposite was Beautiful Ugly. There were so many details, you could picture it so clearly, even a place that you've never been to. It just, the way she wrote it, I was there. I felt like I was standing there and watching the story unfold. It was insane. More of a cozy, curled up on the couch, watching a slow burn story take place. It was a bit more slow and drawn out, but I love the setting. I wish we saw more diversity in their POVs because I was always wishing for Abby's storyline. Other than that, it was the perfect setting to get lost into. In March, I made it back from my cruise, kind of relaxed a bit, and then jumped straight into The Stranger in the Lifeboat. This is when I made my book bingo and was kind of trying to dive into and actually finish my TBR. And this one's actually the assigned copy, which I think is so cool, and I have to say every time I have it. All these famous people are on this big old yacht and they're having fun, and it's supposed to be this like big thing, and it actually sinks. You are following along the survivors who did survive, and then you have like timelines of the future, and so you kind of get glimpses as to if they made it or not. So there's a whole bunch of timelines that you're following back and forth, but it's really cool because they're on this lifeboat. That's kind of like the main part of the book, is these 7 or 8 people on this lifeboat. They're all kind of praying and hoping that they make it out alive because they're in the middle of the Atlantic. They don't know what to do. And then they're all praying to God, and God shows up in physical form. You're kind of following him along about, is this man actually saying who he says he is? Is he God? While you're also getting like future timelines. The way he writes is kind of like he's putting a blanket over you. Like, it's very slow, and if you read the sentences a couple times, you're like, wow, the impact of that sentence is crazy. And at the end of the day, we all want to believe in something, live for something. But when that goes away, what do? Mitch Albom beautifully crafted the concept of faith in a manner I've never imagined. What would you do if you called and God came in physical form? What do you say? I love the parallel storylines as you weave in and out. The twists and turns and ups and downs made it feel like I was going through the roller coaster of life. Grief is a powerful thing. Faith is even stronger. We start to get into like the new release era. The first one I decided to pick up, Sunrise on the Reaping by Susan Collins. Earlier this year, if you saw my very first video, the first actual series I talked about reading 2024 in January was the Hunger Games series for the very first time, and ever since then I've been like entranced. Then when Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, I read that too. And so I think it was just tradition at this point to go ahead and read Sunrise on the Reaping. Hearing this story and being able to actually understand and what went on, I feel like has been a mystery for years and years of my life, and now it's solved and something in me healed. Being able to see a beloved character from when I was in middle school and actually get to hear what he went through was just kind of heartbreaking, but also kind of, now I understand you. I knew the ending, yet felt my heart ripped out of my chest. The end made me want to curl up and have sleeping medicine down my throat, because those words unstitched an old scar that started in middle school when I first met Katniss. The little medicine down the throat is like a little reference to the Hunger Games world. If you know, you know. I feel like I've talked about this book so much. Obviously, I made a whole video on this book and this series. I've been making videos for them, but A Court of Wings and Ruin. If you guys want to hear every little intricate thought and spoiler sections and all that stuff, go ahead and just watch that video. So it took me about 5 days to finish this hunk of a junk book, which is crazy to me because it took me about the same amount of time to finish this book. So you can already see I really love this book. They're family at this point, like we are friends, and they have no idea. Yeah, it did ruin me. At this point, I feel like I'm besties with everyone. It's like diving into a world that's been waiting for me. I love the setting, the banter, the history they're crafted more, the behind-the-scenes plot. I wish it was less build-up. I felt like 500 pages of just talking and arguing about war, but not actually physically taking action. The last 100 pages, we finally got to the good stuff, which made me low-key wish it was shorter. I will say, Sarah J. Maas has a way of writing impact. The end felt like a movie, and the twists and hopes and powerful batting moves from Feyre and Rhys had me audibly gasping. Still loved, just wish it was less dialogue and more doing. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I mean, we've all heard about these books. They're so popular. Basically about Peyton, and Peyton is a girl who doesn't have powers and pretends she does. She gets put in these trials because she saves the future enforcer. His name's Kai. His goal in life is to kill ordinaries, and she is an ordinary who's pretending to be an elite with powers. She gets put in these trials, and you watch as they fall in love, but they're trying their very hardest not to. And I feel like that pretty much sums up the entire book. Even after a reread, I'm still giggling and butterfly-ridden for Kai Azar. This series will never not give me an escape to a world filled with beautiful banter and slow burn moments that are forever engraved in my brain. I love, love, love. I know a lot of people shame on this series, but seriously, if you come into it with the perspective that it's lighthearted, not terribly complicated world building, and mainly romance driven, you will have a blast. Forget similarities between other books, and it's memories of stories I once grew up on and ones I still love now. Okay, maybe I'll start reading this again. It's escapism at its finest and heavy romance, and sometimes that's what a girl wants. Rereading it was really funny because I was reading and I'd remember moments from the first time I read it and then anticipate what was going on. We are getting into books that I have just reviewed and made a whole stinking video on. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I made this whole series about reading Emily Henry until I find 5 stars. Follows Harriet and Wynne after a breakup. They were dating for 8 years, they were engaged, they broke up, they didn't tell their best friends, and all of a sudden they're stuck at this mansion that one of the best friends, her family owns it, and they have to pretend to still be engaged and in love even though they haven't spoken to each other in months. You're kind of navigating how they're trying to do that and make boundaries and also like fake it in front of their friends and all this stuff. Ugh. I wish I loved it. I love the setting, the feelings of finding solace in your friends, the euphoric vibes. I love the side characters so much. She had a way of telling me the characters as if I met them, knowing bits of them at a time to make it feel real. But Harriet, I did not love her. Something about her character and the way she thought made me feel frustrated. I think not getting his POV as well frustrated me because I didn't know why they even broke up in the first place. I will say the last 40 pages had me hooked. I just wish I felt more attached and into the book for the majority of it. It's A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This book. Oh my goodness. I've heard so many mixed reviews on people loving and hating this book. I thought it was beautifully written. It definitely gave me vibes of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's a parallel storyline of Margaret Ives, and she disappears from the public eye for 20 years, and she's back and she's ready to tell her story. So she hires 2 journalists, and those 2 journalists have like a month trial of trying to prove that they could write the book well enough for her. So they're having to make like proposals, and they're interviewing her both individually and trying to get her story. So you're following that storyline. Additionally to following Hayden and Alice, which are the 2 journalists up for writing this story, and you follow them as they fall in love and they don't want to because they are against each other. A compelling story that takes you into what happens when you make choices and how they can impact you down the road. It twists and turns in such a quiet way that you almost didn't realize there was going to be a plot twist. I'm not the biggest fan of the way she writes love sometimes, and this one had me feeling similar emotions. I didn't love the instant connection love. On the opposite side, I loved reading about Margaret and Cosmo's love, and the way she wrote that ripped my heart out. Dare I say I enjoyed Margaret's story a bit more. Either way, I love the small town, cozy vibes, and the relationship with her family was so relatable. I love how the romance isn't the entirety of what makes this story so great. It's the connection, the rawness, the beauty of being human. I love, love, love it. I will see you guys next time. I love you. Bye.